we're going to do rotations. And I've done rotations before in videos, but this one we're going to focus on by coordinates, okay? And we're going to come up with some rules. So we have our object here, and then we'll do a more difficult question. And I'm going to zoom in a little. Our object here, okay? What I'm going to do first is get each of the 4 coordinates. So we're going to say that one's at roughly 6 and 8. You're okay with writing coordinates?
Yeah.
What would that one be at?
7, 3.
Great. Down here?
2, 1.
Yep. And finally?
There, 3, 4.
Good, 3, 4. So here are our 4 coordinates, okay? And we're going to talk about there are 3 different rotations. There's technically 4. You can do 360 degrees, but that's just going to bring you right back to where you are. Exactly. And instead of calling something 270 degrees, we just talk about rotating it the other way. So the first one we start with is 90 degrees counterclockwise, or sorry, clockwise. So a 90-degree rotation, and we have 4 quadrants here. If you can see them all in one shot. I'm going to zoom out just a little. Okay. We have quadrant 1, okay, and that's when we're in this one here. Quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. And the reason I call them quadrants is they sectioned this into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So we've sectioned them off. Do they make sense how I've sectioned these quadrants off?
Yep.
An idea, think of it like this. Yellow is here, that's quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is in green. Quadrant 3 is in blue. And quadrant 4 is our purple. Okay? So we're talking about moving between all those quadrants. Let's take this away. Okay. If we're talking about a rotation of 90 degrees clockwise, we're talking about moving from quadrant 1, this shape, and clockwise is in this fashion, okay? So in other words, think about taking this whole idea and moving him into the 4th quadrant, okay? And that's what we're going to be doing with this guy for 90 degrees clockwise. So right here we've written x and y. In other words, we are going to replace our x and y values. We'll talk about the very first point. It's at 6 and 8, okay? And what I'll do is I'll go down the page a little and actually fill this out. So we're doing 90 degrees clockwise, okay? And we'll write our rule. We take x and y, and what ends up happening is the y becomes the new x value, and the x value, we have to take the negative of it. It becomes the new y value. So kind of looks confusing. But for instance, our very first coordinate was 6 and 8, right? Well, what's going to happen?
It's going to become 8, negative 6.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to flip these two. So let's flip them before we even put a negative value in anywhere. Okay? And that means the 8 will come first. The 6 will go second. But because we have to make the x negative, it becomes negative 6. Okay? So we're going to do that with all 3 coordinates. The other 3, sorry, not all 3. There's 4 altogether. We had 7 and 3, 2 and 1, and 3 and 4. Right? Those are all the coordinates. So when we go to move these all 90 degrees clockwise, it becomes 3, 7, and the 7 becomes negative. This becomes 1, 2, yeah, and this becomes 4, 3, and the 3 is negative. So let's actually plot those points. Well, 8 and negative 6 is here, okay? 3 and negative 7 is there. 1 and negative 2 is here. And 4 and negative 3 is there, right? So let's connect our dots with a red line because there's a new one that's in red. And if we connect our coordinates, if we look, we've now turned this guy 90 degrees clockwise. And it makes sense, right? This shape has shifted into this shape. It's been turned 90 degrees. Does this step make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a more difficult example of a 90-degree clockwise rotation, right? Let's put the coordinates down. Our coordinate here is 2 and 4. This coordinate here is at
3
and negative 6. Good. What's this one here?
This one is negative 6 and negative 4.
Great. And our last one here is at
negative 4 and negative 4 and 1.
And 1. Great. Okay. So these coordinates are a little tougher because they're all in different quadrants, right? So we're going to do the same process. We're going to write them all down, our x and y. So we had 2 and 4, 3 and negative 6, negative 6 and negative 4, and finally negative 4 and 1. All in different quadrants. Well, our rule states that we flip the two values, so this becomes 4, and this becomes 2, and we make the x value the opposite, so it becomes a negative. Okay? Same idea. This we're flipping, so negative 6 and 3, but the x value becomes negative, so we make the 3 negative. Okay? Flip the next values. This becomes negative 4, this becomes negative 6, but they're saying to flip the value.
So it becomes positive.
So it becomes a positive value. Okay? Because they're telling us to multiply by negative. So think of it like multiplying integers, right? And finally, this becomes 1
and 4.
and negative 4, but
it becomes
a positive 4. Okay, so now let's put these values. This one becomes 4 and negative 2. Well, 4 and negative 2 is here. This becomes a negative 6 and negative 3. So that goes right about, nope, sorry, one more down. Right? This becomes negative.
Yeah, just a thing.
What did I do wrong? Oh, and negative 6. So I only went to negative 5. Good. Good eye. The next value becomes negative 4 and positive 6. Okay. And the last one becomes 1 and 4. It's a little different. Okay. So this is a 90-degree rotation of what we just did. So let's take a look and see if this roughly looks like the same guy. So let's see if we've had a 90-degree rotation. Let's try to coordinate each point. So this point, 2, 4, became 4, 2. So it rotated that way. Okay. This guy became negative 6, 3. So he rotated to there. This guy here rotated up. And this guy here rotated to here. Okay. So we've had a complete flip of this coordinate of 90 degrees. All right. Does this make sense? What's happened here? Yeah. So the whole shape has been turned on its side. And if I could actually group it, which I think I can kind of show a 90-degree rotation. Something like that.
Yeah.
Except that we weren't turning around the origin. That's the only difference. So let's say we were turning it around the origin, it would have that idea. So we know the shape is, see how our shape is good. Our shape is good, we just didn't quite turn it around the origin. It needs to, let's see, can we shift it up a bit to give that idea? It won't let me grab. No, it won't let me grab it.
It's okay.
Oh yeah, here we go. And that's the idea. Perfect, right? That worked out great. And let's go back one more. There it is. Okay, so there's the original one. And that's what it looked like when we did the two rotations. We rotated one and then we rotated the other one.